All right, let's get into our predictions for the week real quick. We're gonna rapid fire through these, man. Appreciate everybody being here. We talked about the Ravens and the Lions. Got the Ravens winning on that one. The Bills and the Dolphins. Look, I think the Bills are going to come in and absolutely decimate the Dolphins. Does anybody else here think that they're not going to do that? Josh Allen broke his nose last week, came back in the game, and hopefully he's himself because Mitch Trubisky had Mitch Trubisky like damn near almost have as many passing yards as Justin Fields last week or something like that when he came in. Craziness. I don't know what's up with Tua Tagovailoa. I don't know what's up with Mike McDaniel. Hopefully this whole Tyreek situation can get figured out and Jalen Waddle gets used a little bit more because not only is he on my fantasy team, but I want to see him do really, really well. Devin Achane and those guys in the running back front, you know, hopefully somebody can help him out there because I think they severely need it. And I think what we're seeing here is a lack of tight end help. Why they would trade Jonnu Smith, I would absolutely have no idea. You've just given the Steelers 3 good tight ends. Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, and Darnell Washington. Like, what are we doing? Defense looks okay though. I mean, it looks like Micah Fitzpatrick is still flying around the field. He's still showing that he's got a little bit of juice. But give me the Bills in this win, and I think they win pretty handedly, man. I think maybe Keon Coleman might go for 200 yards in this game, to be completely honest with you. The Eagles versus Rams, man, could have been the game of the week for me for sure. I think both of these teams are so interesting. That front seven for the Rams is so good. I think this is one of those games where it's going to be one in the trenches for sure. And I expect the Rams to at least get one stop on the tush push here from the Eagles. The Eagles have to figure out their passing game. They really do. The running game, Saquon looks really, really good. Man, that dude is so fun to watch. The way he cuts, the way he, can get upfield. And I understand that the Rams have to make the long trip to Lincoln Financial Field, but they'll be prepared enough. I think Sean McVay get those guys up and running. And, man, it's going to be fun to watch Matthew Stafford and the boys and see what they do against Quinyon Mitchell in that secondary. Adoree Jackson has been horrible this year. I don't know why Ja'Cory Bennett is not out there or they don't move Cooper DeJean to play an outside corner, but Adoree Jackson looks absolutely horrible. I'm not sure what they're doing there. And, I haven't been all surprised by their front seven. I mean, it really hasn't surprised me yet. I don't know if Vic Fangio is just what he's trying to do to figure out what those young guys are going to do. I haven't been super impressed by 𝗎𝗫 Campbell. I mean, I told you that when I was watching film on that dude. I know a lot of people were high on him. He's made some plays here and there. The dude could play the hell out of Tampa too, though. I can tell you that. But, Don has the Eagles winning, and I have the Rams winning. I think this is a close game. I think this is a fun game down to the wire. But I just believe the passing game out of the Rams is what's really going to win them the game here. And Matthew Stafford looks good. I tried to tell you, I got a couple buddies that work for the Rams, and they said, man, everything that people are talking about when it comes to Matthew Stafford's back is all cap. Try to tell you guys that from the jump. Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, yeah, Edwin, the boys are cooking, man. The boys are cooking, no pun intended. Then we got the Giants versus Kansas City. Whatever the Giants did last week against Cowboys is not going to work against Kansas City. It's not. And I think that Kansas City is really waiting to make a statement on the Giants. The Giants are trying to figure out the running back situation. I think they kind of have their quarterback and their receiver situation figured out. I think they're still trying to figure out some things with their tight end. And, of course, that offensive line. Having an offensive lineman get thrown out last week for 4 penalties. And, their defense can't get cooked like they did. Maybe Deonte Banks comes in and tries to get his starting role back. Who knows? But Tyler Nubin, another guy that we pointed out on film that is just not good, man. He's not good. I don't know what people saw in Tyler Nubin on film, but I was not high on Tyler Nubin. And that's another one that the ECG feather in the cap right there. And it every single time you turn a corner, you're like, man, what they could have had with Xavier McKinney being there still and all this other stuff. But hindsight's 2020, right? Brian Daboll's really got to get this team together. It seems like sometimes he's loses grasp with his star players like Malik Neighbors and those guys. But in my humble opinion, what needs to happen is that they need to come out and fire on all cylinders on the Chiefs by running the ball. They do. They need to establish the running game and figure out if 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗶𝘂𝗀𝗬 or whoever is going to be running the rock for them is got to be the primary weapon for them moving forward. But ultimately, the Chiefs are going to win this game. I don't think it's necessarily even competitive. They're going to make the trip to New York, and they're going to give them another L, unfortunately. Now, another interesting matchup that we have here is the San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals, man. Mac Jones came in, looked really good. Brock Purdy's going to be out with some injuries, and I told everybody that I don't even care what the wide receiver situation looks like. I think they're still going to be pretty decent. Their defense looks incredible. Fred Warner has looked otherworldly this year. We're looking at a potential guy that may win Defensive Player of the Year by the way that he's playing. It reminds me a lot of what Zach Bond was doing for the Eagles last year. But their defense looks great. I don't know how they just keep stepping up. And, Michael Williams last game had, seems like he is the right fit for them with, Nick Bosa rushing the quarterback. But then you look at the Cardinals situation, and it's almost like the Giants, right? The way that they just allow teams to come back where they just can't close the gap on teams. And, are we going to utilize Marvin Harrison Jr. or, what is going to be the issue, if they're not using, the rest of those guys on the roster? Because I think Michael Wilson can be a weapon. I think their running back situation can be really, really good. But again, I think establishing who is going to be the number one guy moving forward, because Trey Benson has had his moments and really has, kind of put James Conner on notice on some of those runs. And their offensive line hasn't looked terrible. Defensive line hasn't looked terrible. I know they've got some injuries, both ways. But yeah, I see your comment there, Dana. Max Melton and Will Johnson may be able to go off their injuries. Will Johnson has looked incredible. And I think it's iron sharpens iron. I told you guys that at the beginning of the season. Like, him getting drafted there across from his mortal enemy and Marvin Harrison Jr. may have been the spark that both of those guys needed. So hopefully they can continue moving forward on that. But Don has the Cardinals, and I ultimately have the 49ers winning this game. I don't think, it's kind of funny because we thought that Mac Jones was going to go to the 49ers. Like, we thought that he was a Kyle Shanahan guy. And he had a really good game, but he's just bound for a bad game. By the way that, the way that he schemes things up and the quarterbacks that he was drafted, it's almost like if you put some of these guys together, you would get a baby of Mac Jones. But we'll see what happens. Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy. I mean, that's going to be hell to deal with for them. But I'm super impressed by the Cardinals so far this year, and the way that they're trying to come together and get a game plan going. But I think Kyler's starting. I don't know. It just seems like Kyler's actually taking a notch back into where he was, man. Maybe the age is catching up to him, just the injuries and everything. They really maybe need to consider drafting one of these quarterbacks in the next draft to at least put a little bit of pressure on them. So we'll see what happens. But I'm taking the 49ers. Don's taking the Cardinals. This is a toss-up game to me. If you said the Cardinals, I would think that, I wouldn't scoff at that idea. Dana says, no, actually, let me go back to the top here. Bengals were cooked before Burrow got hurt. Yeah, I mean, we all knew that, but it doesn't make it any better when he's not playing. Eagles ball control, time of possession, red zone conversion, Eagles win. Not mad at that at all either. I think it's going to be a really, really good game. Max Melton practice. Yeah, we saw that. Kyler Murray is so overrated. I don't think he's overrated. He is tiny, though, so I will agree with that. Dana says the route breaks aren't matched to the drop depth in the Cardinal scheme. The check downs are, but anything intermediate or deep, timing is off. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, it just seems Kyler used to dump that thing really, really far. I don't know what happened. On the run on the run side of things, they need to block better. James Conner is only at 2.2 yards before contact at the moment. Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. You know, maybe that's with the combination of, you know, they've been running that, trying to figure out Trey Benson and James Conner. I like James Conner. I'm not a huge fan of Trey Benson, but we have seen him get in the open space and make things happen. So Conner is a 6th-round fantasy still for me every year. Yeah, but Trey Benson's starting to get more involved in the game. I told everybody last week that maybe one of your fantasy pickups needs to be Trey Benson. All right, let's get into some bets and some fantasy locks, man. I know this says New Jersey at Tampa Bay. Well, Washington -6.5. It's supposed to be Tampa Bay -6.5, by the way. Take Tampa Bay -6.5. Jets are going to be without Justin Fields. That defense does not look as good as it has been in previous years. And I don't think them making a road trip is going to make this even better. 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗶𝗲𝗀𝗀, Mike Evans, all those guys, Bucky Irvin, they got to stop all that in the passing game. And then you have Rachaad White, who was running the ball really, really well last week. Give me Tampa Bay -6.5. The over-under, Houston at Jacksonville. What can I tell you guys here? 20.5 points for the scoring D for the Jaguars. 17-point scoring defense for Houston. That's less than 43 points right there. And Houston is averaging 14 points per game on offense. I still think both defenses will prevail in this game, and they're not going to score a bunch. Trevor Lawrence sucks. CJ Stroud hasn't not looked the same. I don't know what's going on with these teams. I think this is a low-scoring divisional game right here. 43.5. Take the under in that game for sure. And as far as the money line, we're going to go back to that Jets and Tampa Bay game. Pick Tampa Bay to win. I think that's the easiest lock of the week right there. Take Tampa Bay to win, and you're going to win yourself some money. Actually, you know, parlay these together if you can, and then boom, see what happens. Might make double your money this week. So those are my 3 locks of the week. As far as the fantasy outlook, we got Tyler Algier as a waiver wire pickup if you don't have him on your team. Look, last week we saw him getting involved or trying to get involved in that offense. They didn't have the best rushing performance, but I told everybody I think that he might be helping out Bijan more than taking a step back this year, and it seems like he has. He comes in at points to over-relieve Bijan when he's out there, and got a lot of carries last week, was over 70 yards rushing, and I expect him to be more involved in the passing game as well. He's a nice little flex position that you may have, or like just to have on your bench until you're ready to swap somebody out at running back, and he may be very, very good there. I wouldn't let him go. Pick him up, see how he does over the next couple of weeks, and if you need somebody to step in for injury or during a bye week, definitely put him in and see what happens. Look, I know a lot of people have been talking about Caleb Williams and how he hasn't been performing that well, which I think is totally false. I think he looked pretty good in the first half of the game, against the Lions, and then against the Vikings. And then we also have last week's performance. He's averaging 20 fantasy points a week. He scored 37 points against the Cowboys, and that's been mostly in the passing game. Or that was mostly in the passing game for the Giants. So if Ben Johnson is going to scheme up something, if you guys saw the week that Rome Odunze had last week, they're just waiting to get Luther Burden involved. He hasn't been involved at all this year. I think what you're about to look at is a pretty big passing performance for Caleb Williams and the Bears this week with all the weapons that they have on that offense. I would definitely start Caleb Williams if you have him and you're skeptical of your quarterback. Hell, I have him on my team, and I might start him this week over Lamar Jackson. That's just me. I might have to pull the trigger. I would bench Ashton Jeanty. Look, He's going against a top 15, top 10 Russian defense. Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner on that team. Deron Payne, Drazon Newton. that front seven is going to eat in the Las Vegas Raiders offensive line just does not look good. So if you got him on your fantasy team, he hasn't been performing all that well anyways. Go to the waiver wire, pick up Tyler Algier, bench Ashton Jeanty, and just move forward with your life at this point in time until proven otherwise. I mean, Ashton Jeanty's a locomotive. He needs the carries. In a Chip Kelly offense, I don't think he's ever going to get eclipse 25 carries in the game. So let's hang that up until proven otherwise, to be completely honest with you.